Okay, I think we are good to start.
Yay! Hi guys. Right. I'm going to show you something maybe similar but somewhat different. So you judge. So the general structure will be somewhat similar to the first talk. I will talk a little bit about the theory, about the context of why we did something that we did, and then I'm going to tell you what we did, and that's kind of a game in a very, very weird sense of a way. But in large corporations, you'd be surprised what things pass for fun in large corporations. So it's a game, and maybe some conclusions, results. Title, I don't have a good title for this. My new title is Chaos Out of Order. Again, because it's an innovative thing, it's a disrupting thing that you know as order. So yes, come and bring chaos. Just 2 words about us, putting in context with maybe first talk. As I think pretty much all of us, believe we are in this quadrant, in a top right quadrant. We are a small team. That's us. That's really, that's us. That's our team. But we are building a multinational, multi-million business platform. Multi-million, we do have many million turnover monthly. We do operate in all continents except Australia and Antarctica. So it's a big thing. There is a lot of cost of delay. There is and it's a new business. So I'd like to think it's a very unknown territory. So I think we're there. And I'm going to be talking about a couple of problems we face there as we try to go there. We scale up, we grow. We still believe in Scrum. I work with Scrum. But the scaling of Scrum is today's topic. So scaling of Agile is today's topic. So about that. Alrighty. So first, small exercise. Please, everybody stand up. You have to raise your arms like this. Try not to hit your neighbors. And say, Batman! Alright, hold your arm, hold your arm. Alright. Now, who practices Scrum in your daily life? You can sit down. Oh. Okay. Who of those of you who are left, who knows what is Scrum? Sit down. Okay, this talk is not for you. Sorry about that. All right, talking about Scrum, I think everybody who has learned and taught have to know this picture, right? Everybody has seen this picture, except you. Right? There are many words have been said about this picture. One thing I want to point out, one thing I like about Scrum is the circles here. The circle. Now, in particular, this big circle, this big cycle, and what I like about it is that it's rather small. It's like 5 guys only in there. So it's rather small, it is rather quick. I'm not going to go in details, but you take a best top feature, you work on it, and you get back pretty quickly, right? You're really ready to take a next feature, relatively quickly. That's not the only thing I like about Agile, but that is important thing, and that is what I like to point out. That's the definition of agility. So we take the feature that we think is most important at the moment. We do it, and we come back, and we rethink, and we take next thing, but this thing might have changed during that time. And this period is quite short, so we are able to take the next thing, in a relatively short time and change direction in a relatively short time. And that's my definition of agility. We can change direction quickly. Okay. So, there are, again, many things to be said about this picture, many problems as well, especially if you try to scale it up. Like with 5 guys, works nicely. You want to scale it up, problems start popping up. I want to talk about one particular problem, and that is this guy. You know who's that? That's product owner, right? That's the guy who puts things on this list, and he orders this list by priorities, right? And if you try to scale up the system, this guy, very quickly you will find out this guy is a bottleneck. The not so nice thing, you might not notice he's a bottleneck because he just says, yeah, that's a backlog, those are priorities, they just don't change. But if you allow that, if you allow him to do that, then all the agility of your cycle does nothing for you because this thing doesn't change. This is your yearly roadmap and you're just following it. Because this guy doesn't have time to rethink it. And you will not notice, he will claim that's the right priorities always. So let's go there.
Sorry, but don't you think when this guy is not on his position?
Sorry?
That only means that the guy is not exactly on his position.
Well, yes, you might get, you want to try and get the best guy there. But sooner or later, if you try to scale it up, you will hit this problem. Well, there are other problems with scaling Agile, but you will hit at some point this problem as well. You need to scale up this guy, and he is slowing everybody down in a very, really invisible way. He says he's doing his job, he says those are the right priorities, but maybe they're not anymore, and you are not utilizing this agility anymore. Again, not saying this is a, everybody has this problem always, but really, in my experience, product owner, if you try to scale things up in the previous presentation, if you try to move from the low impact, smaller systems to large impact, large cost of delay, bigger systems, they are very complex, and it's a very hard job to decide on the priorities of things, what to do. So, and there is really not much said about what to do with this guy. Just you get the best guy to do this job, sure. But apart from that, okay, you can have several of them, but then, yeah, we'll get there. But that's the problem I want to talk about. Right. Okay. So, and in particular, the problem that we think we have solved, and I'm not going to be claiming that's the revolution, that's the invention. It might be somebody has invented it somewhere else. If you know the name for this thing, then tell me. But we did invent it for us. So, the problem that we are trying to solve is a problem of prioritizing, of ordering that list of items. People come up with a lot of ideas, put them on a list, but then how do you prioritize which thing to take next? So, I will be showing you some math, so. Alright? Okay, that's the math. That's the math of prioritization. You take value of a feature, you take size of a feature, you do a division, and then you order the list by the results. Right?
What is size?
Sorry?
Size.
Size. A cost.
0.
It's a cost. How much will it cost us to build it? Size. So yeah, please try to memorize this formula for the rest of this talk. This is it is that simple. In business schools they call it decision making. It's applying this formula. You figure out value, you figure out size, you divide, and you order by the result. You take the top one. That's the decision making you teach in MBAs, right? Okay. And that is the job that, in many cases, well, the problems are kind of, when you try to scale out the system, then problems start to crop up with this thing and this thing. Well, how do you figure out how much is it worth? And then how do you figure out what the size of it? It's an unknown thing that somebody just had a wild idea that we should do. How big is it? That's another thing. I'll be upfront with you. We think we have figured out a way to figure out this thing. I have no idea how to figure out this. So what we did, we built a framework that allows us to minimize, thinking about this and focus on this and still get something done. All right. That's the theory. Right. Questions so far? Comments? All right.
So who's defining the value? Is that the product?
We will get there.
How is it different from just prioritizing the list?
And can I ask whether the value is static or it's dynamic?
We will get there too. All right. So, without further ado, a value point game. Again, disclaimer, game is maybe a little bit strong word. What passes for games in corporate environment? What are the artifacts of a game? It's just one. There is a public backlog of features. List of features. In our practice, it's implemented as an Excel file shared on SharePoint, so it's available for everyone. I know, SharePoint, I hate it too, but the point. Basic rules of the game, very simple. Everybody who shows up to our feature demo, which happens every 2 weeks, gets 5 voting points, and they use those points to vote for features. I want to stop a little bit here. Vote might have been put in quotes. Official term is you distribute the points according to your perceived value of this feature for the company. But we call it vote. So
you can say invests.
You could say that.
And the feature is something already implemented or just an idea of it?
It's a backlog of features, that's an idea of feature. So, those are the basic rules. At this point, I have to stop and reconfirm with you, are the rules clear? As questions on the rules, right? So, very good question. Very good question. Everyone is invited. Everyone within a company is invited.
Can I, as a third-party person, come and see?
We limit it to our company, but if you come work for us, no matter what capacity, you can come and you can vote for features.
So the cleaning lady basically gets 5 points, right?
If she shows up to the demo, yes.
So actually you can easily abuse it through, invite a lot of ladies and vote for your beloved feature.
Yes, it is one of the topics of gamification and game theory in general, that yes, basically any system you devise can probably be abused. So you devise it in a way that abusing the system brings some value. So you're free to invite all your assistants, all your friends within a company to come to the demos, but that's actually what we want. We want people to come to the demos, we want to get their input, we want to distribute our features to them and their feedback back.
What was the maximum amount of the people showed up?
I will show you the real thing. It's surprisingly, it's less than you would think.
Oh, it's
Because
more than me.
really,
what is more than me is more than you think.
Yeah, well, you would think it's a lot, but in reality, it's less than you would fear that actually show up. The thing in big corporations, and again, I come from a startup, but by now I can't really say we're a startup anymore. We work in a big multinational company with multi-billion turnover. There is a lot of people who don't care, and that's the main problem. It's not the people who really want to come to every of your demos and break it that way. It's the opposite, typically. Again, Your mileage may vary. But okay, on the rules, are we clear? Good. There is there is some advanced rules, as more like corollaries or advanced rules. First thing, this backlog that people vote for, it does not have a feature size estimates in any form. And this one is tripping a lot of people, and still, even though we've been running that for a year now, still some stakeholders come to me and say, hey, but it would make it much easier for me to vote for it if I knew the size of or the cost of the feature. But what I think then, dude, you've totally misunderstood everything I've said. What I say politely is that what we want you to do with your vote is to demonstrate the value of the feature for company. The value of the feature is no way dependent on the size of the feature or the cost of the feature, of how hard is it to implement. You concentrate on the value, what it brings to us. So you do not need size estimate as an input for that. All right? Second is, it's a rule, or rather a promise from a development side, that if our stakeholders do their part, they do tell us what the value is, we on our side make a simple promise: we maximize the output of value, of delivered value. A couple of corollaries to this. This means we don't always take the top thing from a backlog with the highest value. Because you can imagine that on the top of a backlog is item A with 100 value points, but it's a huge thing. It's like something we would have to spend more than a sprint for, like all of these people, so it's big. And then item B next to it is like 70 points, but we could do it like 2 of us in a day. And there's item C, which is like 50 points, and we could do that in a couple of us in another day. So we take that to those two and deliver 120 points instead of 100 points. So, and that's how we keep our promise. We maximize the output, maximize the produced value. We do not promise to take, and this is what I get to explain people over and over when they ask me, how much does this, how much value points does this feature need for you to take it? All right. And yeah, one more advanced rule for that is, it is possible and even recommended for stakeholders to, instead of accumulating points, even though we do allow some accumulation of points, instead of accumulating points, you are allowed to move points between items in a backlog before we have actually picked up the feature and started working on it. This is what's for me, it's hard work actually making people do that, but this is what gives us agility. This is what means that instead of following the set course that, 3 months ago we voted this way, so now we still have to do it, people are encouraged to move those votes according to their current perception of value of those features. Important here is the move part, so you are not just saying that too is important. You have to take this value from somewhere and move it somewhere else. So, and it's a very typical problem with business people. If you say, okay, I have a list of features, please say how important they are. You will get an answer, this is very important, this is very important, this is super important, and that's also super important. And that's easy to do if you don't have to take this value from somewhere. The hard thing starts when you have to say, okay, you have 5 points, please distribute them between these things. You can remove them, but you can't just pile up more and more without any accountability.
So you store who has voted, because obviously people cannot move other people's points.
Yes, we do. Yeah, we do. All right. Advanced rules, not so important. Main thing that you know, the basic rules. This is it for the game, for the description of model. Questions, comments so far on how it works, on whether it's clear how it works, and then we will get a little bit how it works for us, how we think it has performed.
So as you said, actual value feature is like number of votes, not the money that gives company or anything. So how is a number of votes for feature responds to the actual money you earn, or any other like things that you achieve?
In the ideal world, there is a transformation of value points and the future earnings or costs saved or costs of delay. All of that is calculated into how you distribute your votes. And there are people who say, hey, let's do it more openly, let's talk about what do you think is the future value of this feature. And this is encouraged by the system. I do encourage in all possible ways discussions between stakeholders and them trying to convince each other that this is more important than this. But ultimate goal gain for me is that they're not trying to convince me, they're trying to convince each other with these arguments like value, future saved costs, anything they can imagine.
It's more valuable than that. Like,
if you think so, yeah.
So it's not calculated something.
It can be calculated. You can do calculations. With calculations, it's probably more easier for you to convince other people to vote the way you think they should. Because again, everyone gets 5 points, and there are quite a few of the stakeholders. So with just your 5 points, you're not going to decide, let's build that. It really becomes you have to convince people. But instead of convincing me as development team, you have to convince other stakeholders. Whether you do it by arguments with calculations or by shouting at them, it is up to you. And people do it differently. Different, types of managers do different things. But the idea is, it is up to them how they convince people. It is a setup of whom they have to convince. Yeah?
So basically, if there is a skewed perseverance of the value in the SCRUM team, which you are trying to organize this way, then, for instance, the outnumbering of your team by larger amount of managers in the room would actually break the system.
Well, the thing is, it is true that we run into the problem that the rule is that everybody who comes gets 5 points. We count us out of that. We get 5 points for all of us, and we vote with 5 points, and then everybody else who comes votes with 5 points.
Okay.
So it's not. Otherwise, it really would be very hard to start, because at first, when we started, like at first demos, we had like maybe 3-4 stakeholders, externals coming in, and then it's like 10 of us, and they okay, let's vote now. It doesn't work. So we kind of scaled it back. So we have only 5 points for all of us. So it's really them who decide. We do have a little input, but not too much. Not overly much, I would say. There was another...
I just want to clarify whether I understood it correct or not. So even if we are having some accumulated value for each at the end, so it's after all the subjective decision of the team which one to pick. And
well,
I'm not criticizing here, I just want to make it sure for myself. And that requires certain maturity for the team.
Yes. Yes. Well, it is a subjective... Yes. I could argue it is objective to the extent that we do the mental calculation of value of how easy it is to get those points, and we keep in mind our goal is to maximize the output of points.
Yeah, but to me it will work only in a way if, as I said, the team is at a certain level of maturity and team does understand actually the business value of everything and maybe the company business in general.
Well, not necessarily.
Otherwise you might pick something what is,
well, the business value is presented to us by stakeholders.
Yeah.
What we do that, you remember the formula, right?
Yeah, I really remember.
We do the quick estimate of, okay, for this I don't need the size estimate because it has 0 points, so screw that. For these top things, maybe we do a size estimate and we decide which one is then the most efficient way to get points. And then we have, let's say we have a new guy who needs a smaller task to start with, so we'll look at something smaller, maybe it's not on top, but it is still something we could deliver in parallel to other things we're doing, so we maybe add that as well. So those things happen. I will show you not here, but here in some of the pictures. All right, so I'll go into this and then maybe more discussions. So maybe these will answer some things. I lied a little bit. I lie a lot. There's two artifacts formally. It's the same Excel sheet, but it has two sheets, right? There's a participation sheet and there's actual backlog. This is a participation sheet. Yeah, I know it's small. That's the real thing. So, a couple of things you can see. I did not lie. We said we are running it for a year now. We do allow accumulation of points. Some people have accumulated 30 points. I do have a hard cap at 30, so if you go over 30, I burn your points. So we keep it per 30. All the participations are marked, so it's transparent for who gets how much why. One thing, it's a bit hard to see here, but yeah, the total participants of how did it go. This is a bit small, but trust me, it is going up. We started with things like 5, 7, definitely under 10. In beginning of this year around 10. Now we're closing to 20, and to expect tomorrow will be over 20.
Developers count for once?
Yeah, developers is represented by my name in this column.
And how many features going into the estimation at time? So how many
I have another picture for you.
But it's always the same backlog, the whole backlog.
Well,
or prioritized backlog. So still, it's like
okay.
Focus on those.
How it works in practice. It's a current backlog. I took a screenshot yesterday. I'll make it a little bit bigger. Not that big. You see, there is right now maybe 60 items until we get to the things that are like 1, 2, 3 points. Then there's maybe like a bunch of maybe 10 to 20 about 3, 2, 1 points. Then there is a lot of longish list of ideas that everybody is saying, hey, this is a nice idea, but I'm not going to vote for it. So I have a rule now that I am putting things on this backlog. If you're a stakeholder and you have an idea of feature, you come to me and say, hey, this very nice feature, you explain it to me or somebody who's responsible for this at the moment, and then you have to promise to put at least 1 point on it. Then it ends up here. If you just say it's a good idea but I'm not going to vote for it, it doesn't show up here. That we have 100 item backlogs somewhere else. I forget it. I clean it up regularly. So only things that people actually are willing to put some of their value on end up on this list. And this is the actual current list of actual features. It's smallish, so maybe a bit of zooming in. So yeah, current top value items like 65 points, something like this. As you remember, the stakeholders are about 14, 15 on average right now. 5 every off each, so something like this. We do track, as you see here, the history of voting for each of those. Though the done items do not disappear from here, they're just filtered out by the Excel magic. So, and that's a good thing. I will talk about that a little bit. You can see the thing I mentioned already, that we don't necessarily start working on items just from top. We do take things like this with just 15 points, like 24 points. That means those are really small-sized items, and we consider that that's the most efficient way to deliver value out of this list. Open and new is pretty much the same. It's just for me to remember. In parallel to this, I'm doing kind of sessions where I explain features to stakeholders so they can vote, make informed decisions. New ones are ones that I haven't formally explained to them yet. So I've been lazy. You can see that as well. Yeah.
So you're working with one system basically, right?
Yes.
Okay. So how many stakeholders in total, in general, who are interested in this system?
There's many answers to that. Again, there is hundreds of people who should be interested.
Yeah, but
there is an average right now 15 or so who show up, who are interested enough to show up on half-an-hour demo every 2 weeks. So,
Okay, so how do you think would it be scalable to many systems, to many tens or hundreds of?
well, I would put it differently. It's a question. It's again. This is if you have many systems and many stakeholders participating in many systems, which is typically the case. You will have to make adaptations to this. You will have to be creative. The principles behind this is that the decisions of value are not made by people who can't be bothered to come to a demo once in 2 weeks, and they shouldn't be.
Just to add to this, just imagine if the stakeholders would be the end users of the system.
I mean, if it's thousands of them, that's chaos for sure. So let's okay. That could work, but that would require immense work of communicating to them and between them. So I would not recommend just jumping in that far. Going up like 20, 50, maybe 100 is possible. Maybe, don't know. Haven't gotten there yet.
So wasn't that the name of the presentation?
Yay, make chaos. Exactly. Exactly. I have a couple of more just talking points, but
one more question.
yeah, sure.
You have a values in your backlog.
Yes.
Let's say you have a 65, if I remember correct.
Yes.
And you have somewhere down like 20 something.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you are saying that, well, we might not take this 65 because it's way too big.
Yeah.
We might take this 24 or 10 or something,
Mm-hmm.
blah blah blah. How do you understand that 65 is way too big, but 61 is okay?
That's a magic that happens. In reality, that's a magic that happens in your sprint planning. When you sit down and you say, okay, that's the feature list with their values. How do we maximize our value output? And then, of course, we look at the top items and say, can we take that? Should we take that? If we take that, can we take something else?
Yeah, sorry, but
It is a bit of creative
you now
process.
sounds to me as a product owner.
It's not me who does the decision, it's a team
but
who does that.
You who's actually making a decision what to take based on the, well, capabilities and priorities.
Well,
Sorry, but this is how it sounds to me.
would it help if I said that sometimes I'm not present?
Well, that's funny as well.
So that's what I mean by automating of product owner.
Yeah.
This is a process how it happens, whether I'm there or not. I am part of a team, so sometimes I'm there and sometimes I'm taking part. It does take, the process happens even if I'm not there. And they're very happy. So I am lazy by nature. Yeah.
So you vote once about these features,
Mhm.
and next time after 2 weeks you start from zero.
If you came to, you can store your points. You don't have to vote every 2 weeks. We store them for you. So you can accumulate up to 30 points until I start burning them off. And every time you come to a demo, you get 5 points more. So if you just come once, you can spend them and forget it, never come back. So there will be a record that you voted to this 5 points this way.
No, I mean, so now we have 65, 62,
Yes.
61, and after 2 weeks we continue voting.
Yeah, they might go up, or something else might go up. And on the open items, which are not in progress yet, these guys may decide, hey, the world around us changed, so I'm going to take some points off of this one and move some of them here. And that really
I
happens.
take off and move them.
Yes,
to
from the
another
start,
place.
items that are not started yet, it's allowed and encouraged to move points between them.
And also I can show up like once in a half a year with my 120 points and I
Well, if you show up once in a half year, you'll get 5 points. You have to show up every 2 weeks to get 5 points.
You had this table, right,
Yeah.
with accumulated, with the
Yes.
number of points. Maybe
Yeah.
it's helps to understand
So
also
they
that
accumulate-
here you see that there is a
It
points.
accumulates only when I show up.
Well,
and
the-
I vote.
Well, how this works is, for example, me, I have been on all but 2 of the demos. I do take vacations sometimes. For that, I've earned 105 points.
So 21 times.
Yeah,
right?
I have currently allocated 100 of them on the features. Some of them are closed, and those I cannot move anymore. Some of them are open, and those I can still move. And I still have 5 unallocated points, which I will allocate when I feel like it.
Basically means that me and my 2 friends can just come to sessions, accumulate 30 was maximum remaining points, and then just vote 90 and get the top one place for some kind of feature.
Yeah, you could. You could. It would take, 6 times 2 weeks of time and 2 friends. Yeah, but you could do that.
You can just show up and sit and listen and don't vote.
You can even vote, and then you at one time you take those points and move them to the one feature.
Sure, but honestly, if you care enough for a feature, and 2 of your friends care enough for this feature,
you have enough
to do that 6 times, that sounds like the feature we should consider, right?
Any interesting stories regarding internal policy now? Like politics, how it's going to play on now?
How to sell your points?
Many. Many. That's great fun. Great fun. All right, but I want to show you a couple of my points, let's continue this. But I just throw more ideas at you. A couple of boos, things that are not so good in this. You also notice it's not a perfect system. It is possible to game it. It is possible to misuse it just by sheer stupidity. It is possible to misunderstand it and just vote, I need this, I don't care about the value for a whole company. That happens, unfortunately. So, yes. There is a tripping point that still trips people. Salespeople, especially, and account managers, they still come back to me and say, hey, this is very nice, very agile, very democratic process, but wouldn't it be nice if we had a half-a-year roadmap of what we're going to do? Yeah. Well,
But you do have, this roadmap just changes over time.
yes. Yeah, we have a map, but it happens to change every 2 weeks. So, hey, you want a fixed copy? Here, have one. Sure. Sure. Something like that. Yeah, some of the managers are still a bit unhappy about this. Those are the, command type managers. They think, but what if I know that this is the thing we have to do? To that, I have an easy answer now. If you think you know that there is a feature we have to do, it is still possible for you to get it your way. Just don't come to me crying about it. Come to stakeholders and convince them. You convince them, they vote, we build this feature. Makes my life so much easier. Alright, and Cabana Wheeze. I've taught agility a lot. I like to think we're doing quite good. We got 2017 Microsoft Distribution Partner Awards. So yay us. And our competitors are serious guys. Okay, a little bit, again, business side. Our competitors are really big companies with typically hundreds of software developers doing the competitive products. We are these guys, literally. We did hire one more, but so still. Sorry?
12.
Yeah, we're 12. We're looking for one more, so it won't be 13. But it is hard to compete with guys who have hundreds of developers with a team of 13, hopefully. Except that we can be more agile. We can change direction more quickly than they can. We can do smarter things than they can. But for that, we need feedback systems like this. And those are notoriously hard to do in big companies. Like, try getting to your end customers and talking to them, that's easy. All right, nice traceability. Think about that. We do store your voting history. And if sometimes it happens, we make things that turns out that they are shit and nobody needs them. But then it's very easy for me to answer a question of why did we build that shit? Because that guy put 10 points there and that guy put 20 points there. Like, that's your answer. And it is visible for everyone. And people do change behavior when they know that it's going to be visible. And it builds trust in several layers. Our developers start to trust more that we are doing the right thing. Those features really have value because there is a transparent process of actual people saying this has value for me more than that. That makes kind of your value work more. On the other layer, the stakeholders trust us more because it's not, they get to talk to us directly. There is no in the middle this product owner who is a black box of something goes in and something goes out. And no, there is a clear process how it happens. You know who voted this way, and that's why we're building it. Even more, we do open up this backlog without the voting history to our customers and explain to them that, hey, we don't have a roadmap, but we are doing this way, and this is how we see the value is. So your guess is as good as ours how it's going to develop, but this is what we base our future development on. So you have some idea what we're thinking about, and you can talk to me, and then I go to them and vote accordingly, so that's how you can get your impact. This is it for me. I do hope for more comments, questions for you guys, or if there's a saying already pointedly, you know.
No,
Sure.
Do you know of any other companies, organizations doing this? Because what you're showing is, let's say, an example and much more worked out of what David Anderson described in his Kanban book as, hey, this is what happens with my stakeholders. They start talking with each other. Shall we do this now?
Yeah.
I will support you in doing this feature this week, and then you support me in doing that feature that week. So this is much more advanced.
Yeah.
So do you know of other?
I have not done my research. I am not an academic. I haven't done digging, so I don't know. From top of my head, no. But probably there are.
There is a innovation games and buy a feature game, and there is a tool even online, so you can have a gala for buying a feature. So exactly for the same way. So it's you just go inside. So you're logging in. You don't need to be present. You are allocated with the money, and then all stakeholders are like need to collaborate and really to figure out the way. But it's not done in the way as you did this continuously. It's done for the planning purposes, like for the bigger part to figure out what is really. And it's done exactly in the same way. But you are continuously doing this. This is, I think, brilliant. So it's quite good.
We are choosing projects like what we should do next, but we also need the size. We know how much storage. Yeah.
So I don't think any of this is rocket science per se. Not really. The math formula is hard, but the rest.
Previous question.
And math formula, there is a dude law. You should check. That's exactly the way. But they are using. It's David Hossman. So he said that the dude's law, his law. He said this. That's the value is the y divided by how. So it's exactly the same way. So what he transferred it. So yeah. So mechanics behind that.
I would really not be surprised that somebody somewhere has published this as their framework and copyrighted it.
No, it's
maybe.
I think it's good for you to publish it. I think it's good, really useful. I think it's you should do this. Really.
I am really happy you like it.
Yeah, really, you need to blog post the whole this process, and this can have a lot of impact. So it's cool.
Cool.
Yes.
Any more comments, if we have more time? No? If not, then I'll take my wine and leave you for the beer.
We can do also that you get your wine, I take your chocolate, and we have some more time for comment.
Yeah, definitely. I'll stay here until the end of this, so we can talk. And if you want to, I'm not hard to find.
Let's make break now.